Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Our Talmud Lunch and Learn, where we get together every Friday at 12 o'clock. It's great to be with our friends online. So this week's Parsha is Parshas Noach. And we know Parshas Noach, there was a generation that had, morals and ethics issues. And God tells Noach, he says, listen, the generation's no good. We're going to have to start over again. So what are you going to build? You're going to build a teva, an ark. And that ark will be a place, a safe space, so to speak, in a culture that is corrupt, in a culture that is devoid of values. So I'm reading this yesterday, and I'm thinking to myself, how appropriate is that for today? In our generation, where we have a generation which is completely devoid of values, which is completely devoid of any morals and ethics, where there's no more sanctity, there's no more holiness, there's no more purity. And what do we have instead? We have media, we have culture, we have movies, we know what's going on with movies and actors and actresses and all that nonsense. And we have the morals and ethics are getting pushed lower and lower and lower, instead of being raised and being elevated. But what do we have? We have a Torah which guides us to higher moral and ethical ground. That's what we have. We have a Torah which tells us this. What does the Torah tell you? The Torah tells us, make a teva. Make an ark. And that ark should be a place which is safe. That ark should be a place that's wholesome. And even though there'll be a flood outside, a flood of this immorality, a flood of all of these terrible things, you will be able to survive in an environment that is wholesome. We talk about this all the time, that we are the gatekeepers of our environment. We are the gatekeepers. We have a responsibility to our children. We have a responsibility to our families. And we have a responsibility to ourselves to ensure that we maintain a status that is lofty, that is holy, that is pure, just like Noach did. And you know what? It's going to sometimes require us to say no to certain invitations. It's going to require us to say no to certain things. You know what? Because it's not to my standards. To me, it's a shocking thing that we have, on movies. They have different ratings. I don't understand these ratings. If it's inappropriate for anyone. It's not just inappropriate for a child. It's inappropriate for an adult too. Right? And if you have something which is harmful, why should it make a difference? Why are we making a distinction between age? If it's having a negative impact, it's going to have a negative impact on every demographic. And we see that the challenges that we have going on around us is we're being distracted and pulled in so many different directions. We're being pulled, whether it's the media, as in television, and all these different news corporations trying to, vying for our attention. We have the internet, which is pulling for our attention. But in all of them, we need to be the ones who decide the safe parameters for us as individuals. It doesn't mean we're limiting ourselves. It doesn't mean we're not going to be worldly. It doesn't mean we're not going to know what's going on in the world. But it does mean that we need to know that it's our responsibility to ensure a safe space for our own soul, for our own spirituality. Just like Noach did, he took his family and went into a teva, into a physical space that was safe. It was also a spiritual place that was safe, where the rest of the world just said they mocked him. And you know what? Most likely that if you create a spiritual safe space for yourself, people will mock you, and people will laugh at you, and people will ridicule you. But that, sadly, is the reality. If we care about our spiritual state, that's what we need to do. And it's I think, perfect timing in our generation that we're in now. We see this every day. We see how people are being taken advantage of. We see how we need to be responsible for ourselves. We need to be responsible for our own spirituality, for our own holiness. And when we have influences around us that are no good, we have to remove ourselves. We have to remove ourselves. We have to distance ourselves from it. There are many short stories I can share, but I'm not sure they're all appropriate for sharing online. So come to our class live on Fridays at 12 o'clock, and you'll be able to hear the rest of the story. But I have a couple of stories to share with those of you sitting here that will not be online. Thank you all for joining us, and have a magnificent Shabbos, and happy learning.